Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Scariff Bay Community Radio in conjunction with Clare TV. My name is Nicholas Rynne, and I'm here tonight. I'm joined here by two legends of East Clare hurling, Donnellan and Mark McKenna. They bring rivals from Fecal and Scariff here to talk about the Senior Hurling Championship and the upcoming Intermediate Championship. Just before we start, there's a very dark cloud over Clare GA at the moment with the passing of Inner Ruai in very sad circumstances, and we just like to acknowledge and to send our deepest sympathy to the Ruai and O'Gorman family. And it was a very special young man and a great young man, and gave a lot in his young life, and we want to acknowledge that and to say how sincerely we would send our condolences. So with that, we move on then. So the Senior Championship is starting. I suppose it started about a month's time, I think. Is it 2 months? Is it 2 months vet about that? I have my homework done, bad sorts. So 2 months, I suppose. Anyone involved with a club G, but especially senior champions like yourself, will know exactly what down to the hour almost how much time is left. But it's got to be tall order. I know you're senior championships and at senior champions, but at times it's I suppose when you win one, you know how to win one. Then it can be the first one can be very hard. To get over that line. And so I just start off by how do you feel about defending your championship now?
Well, sure, I suppose it is great. We got over the line, as you say, last year. It is very hard to win your first one, especially when you were a team coming up against a formidable opponent like 6 Mile Bridge in the county final. Like, not anyone going into that match would have expected that the Bridge would have won it, So we went in with no illusions. But in fairness to hurlers, they kept their best wine till the last day, and they played their best hurling on the final, and they were fully deserving winners on the day, Now that they have won it, it is going to be equally as hard to defend it, You can see what happened to Clare this year after winning their All-Ireland last year, and they were ravaged by injuries at the start of the year, and the league campaign didn't go well, and they ended up being knocked out of the championship. And to this date, we are kind of mirroring that in the fact that we've had injuries at the start of the year, carrying on from last year, and we have a good few injuries, and our league progress wasn't great, but we didn't follow and get relegated, so we were happy enough with that. So At the moment, we're not too bad.
Yeah, I suppose like the relief last year, you could see it had been a while. It wasn't an awful long time, but it had been a while back to 86, 87, was it? You played yourself. It must be a huge occasion for you to see about your sons pick up a senior championship, follow your footsteps. But it must have been a huge relief as well to get over the line. You've been pushing, and to get a team in a small, Fecal is not that small a parish, but it's a very rural parish in a rural area. To get 20 odd players to play it's senior hurling and to win a senior championship, it's some feat, I think, anyway. When you don't have a huge population, you have other sports going on, you have young people, to get people interested in hurling in the first place and to get them to stick at it. I think that's a fair achievement in itself, like.
It is. The numbers aren't huge. You've only 60, 64 or 65 children in the national school, and that's boys or girls, so you have the big peak to come from, and that's there for the last 20 years, But I suppose everyone that goes to the school nearly plays hurling, there's 85% of them would be GA-orientated people, and they continue on to from school on to underage, and we're joined with Kilnina. And without that amalgamation, we wouldn't have been able to survive, because we just wouldn't have the numbers to compete at any level. But in fairness, for the last 10 or 15 years, we've been competitive enough at underage, and every time a team starts out at under 12, that's the first competitive grade that they're at. You'd be hoping by the time to get the minor that they're playing at a level that would be higher, and at the highest grade that they're capable of playing at, whether that's C, B or A, And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've contested under 21A titles, and the lads that were the backbone of those teams from our parish were the fellas that were the backbone of the senior championship team last year.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at it, the under-21 success definitely was part of your story. But as well as that, it just so happened that the Harty Cup came to East Clare as well. It came to Tulla, and a lot of your lads were actually involved in that as well. So that was a major thing I felt anyway for the development and the likes of Adam Hogan, or Conor, a few more lads there as well. Like, that was really feeding into the fecal as well. Like,
But that was a huge influence altogether because Ronan O'Connor was captain of that team, and we had Ronan and Oisin O'Connor, Adam Hogan, Oisin Clune, Patrick Daly and Owen Daly. So we had 6 members of the panel, and the fact that Tulla had never won a Harty Cup before was huge, and to have 4 of them on the team was super, and it gave them fierce belief, in winning a Harty Cup medal. I don't know what winning a Harty Cup medal is like, but the confidence that gives a young fella, and his hurling pedigree is unreal, and you can see that in Ronan O'Connor. He captained the under-20 team the following year, then the Clare under-20 team,
That's right.
So his brother then was captain of our under-21 team that won the championship. So there's been a great influx there for the last 4 or 5 years, good quality players that will come up to senior level. But you need them, without them you wouldn't be going anywhere,
Yeah, you have to have, it's all the ingredients that you get, but then the likes of yourself and there's other lads there, down through the years, who's kept the show on the road, even in bad days. They'd be at bad years, when lean years, and trying to keep lads together. We say, there's an awful lot of work goes into running the club, and just running the club, the field up there and field. Everything that, the lotto has to be done. I see the women getting involved there. They're collecting the lotto on the way into matches and stuff like that. There's an amount of work to keep a club afloat, though.
Otherwise, you have to work very hard at it, and you have to have a good committee behind you, keep it going from every level. As you say, it isn't just playing on the field. You have to have a social element of it as well, and you have to have the finances. And at the moment, we're doing a clubhouse, so you have to go back to the community there. And without the backing of the community, you can't do any of those things.
Mark McKenna, you have great success now as well as underage and under-21, so you'll be pushing your neighbours here this year, I'm sure, as well. And you've been knocking on the door over the last couple of years, and you've found some great new talent, and there's a young talent now knocking in the door as well, playing minor for Clare, playing under-20s for Clare. So and of course your leading light, Mark Rogers, is and there's other lads there as well, that I could mention as well, So what I'm saying is East Clare now is haven't had a lull for a while. He's really back up there at the top, and it goes along with the Harty Cup, winning the Harty Cup as well. And it's really East Clare, and we need East Clare to be strong for Clare hurling, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Nicholas. And from what Barrett said there too about he starting with under-12s and an amalgamation with Fiki Killanena, were absolutely the same in Scariff division a few years back, that when the numbers were small, and Barrett said it there about the numbers in the national school, we were the same. And it came to a stage where, in order to progress some of these lads, even if they started out as a lower grade of hurling, it had to be done through an amalgamation. And the work that was put in then over the years, resulting in, he says, paying for real good hurlers, or every hurler playing at the minor level at a higher grade. That means a huge amount to the progression of a player. And for the coaches that get involved from that 12 to 18, they're actually putting all these players in a position to play senior hurling. And you're right then, in Fiki Killanena's case, they had the extra adders of the Harty Cup with the lads that were involved with those, one in under-21A, and now we have 2 under-21As, one in the last 3 years, and that's a huge combination and culmination of an awful lot of work and an awful lot of progress. And then, as you say, you said you could name 5 or 6, starting with Mark Rogers down to Patrick the 2 Crushies, Keelan Hartigan, and so on down along to the lads that play in development squads, play for the county, the college teams, and on the Clare minors. So it'd be huge progression, even through an amalgamation, but through progress, through coaching, to get them where they all look forward to going over the 17-18 threshold, playing under 21 A hurling at is in with us and with Fecal. Then you set them up for when the time comes for Care Cup and senior hurling. So it's a culmination of a lot of work over a lot of years. But when it comes to the stage, when you see them there at senior level, it's great. It's a great time.
Yeah, like Fecal win in the 80s, and yourselves there, was it 95 or 96? He came out in the width of a goalpost of winning the championship that year. You were a part of that great team. You were very unlucky not to win it. But I suppose the question I'm asking is, like, and there's always been a great tradition in Scariff and a great tradition in Fecal and in East Clare in general. Like, so even though there might be a lull for a number of years, tradition always shines through. And, there's people there who will, want their sons on the team, and they'll want their sons playing hurling. And it comes from back many, many years, 50, 60, 100 years ago, when hurling has been played in these parts. Like, so that tradition is vital, I think, anyway. And it comes to the top then.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I missed or I left out that point. Like the tradition that is in East Clare hurling, the tradition that is in the rural club. That's everybody only carries that on. You're right, that there for 100 years. And there was a lull with a lot of teams, a lot of like Beasley themselves had to win an intermediate or two. We had to win eventually get over the line in intermediate. That took a good number of years before we got back up senior, and that all take hard work too. But the tradition would eventually be behind you, and we're all coming from East Clare, and as there was a headline there over the last number of years, we got to the semi-final. Fecal got to the final last year, won it out, and people kind of saying a little bit of an East Clare rising with the clubs like that staying strong, because if you go back maybe 10 years, the 8 teams that were in a senior quarter final, or 12 years, probably none of the East Clare teams featured in it. So now to see 2, maybe 3 East Clare teams in quarterfinals, semi-finals, and winning a county final is great for our side of the county. It is.
Absolutely massive. I just look at the groups there now, and I'll go with yourself there now, Val. You have in your group, you have
Wolf Tones,
Newmarket and Ferguson, Éire Óg.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that group? Wolf Tones just back up from intermediate. Newmarket sort of middle of the road, but always a tough team, and we know what Éire Óg can bring if they have a Shane O'Donnell and a David Reedy and so on in their team as well. So it's a strong enough group.
It's a strong group, yeah. Each team would believe that they'd be capable of beating one another. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, it wouldn't be anything. There'd be no team fearing either one of the rivals in it. Do you know? It's as I say, if you play up to your form on the day and you're good enough to win it, we play up to our form, we'd be good enough to win. If we don't, we won't. Do you know what I mean? But you won't. There isn't any easy match in it. I mean, we have Wolf Tones in the first round. They had 4 fellas playing last Sunday inside against Limerick. Do you know? So when they come back to their team, they'll really be a real backbone. And like, they're up from intermediate. And as you know, coming up from intermediate isn't any harm. You know,
yeah.
We're not up that long ourselves. So they just went down and gathered themselves together and got back up straight away. So they'll be strong. And the market and Éire Óg will be very even. So, you know, with a bit of luck, we'll get through. And if we don't play to our form, we won't. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's all on the day as well. Like, and it's a top 2 teams. Am I right in saying that?
Top two
teams of each group, and you have 8 teams into the quarterfinals. So I suppose, Mark, your group then is a strong group as well, because you've got recent champions Cracklow, Kilmaley, not an awful long time ago since they were champions, a bit away, but Ballyea then as well, like, who are starting to regroup again. I feel so you're in there's no easy group, I suppose, Mark.
No, that was evident from the night of the draw that all groups, there was no group that should say, well, Team A or Team B are going to come out of that group anyway. So, as well, that all those matches in that group are competitive and the same in our group. And I suppose the way it always had been looked at and I'd say most teams are the same. You set out your goal at the beginning of the year, then you see the draw and you target maybe getting to a quarter final, but ultimately you really don't look any further than the first round match, and you are unfortunate to lose your first round. You really have work to do, but I think a lot of the work from a lot of clubs and a lot of coaches and that goes into your first round. If you're looking past your first round, you're possibly getting ahead of yourself or whatever, but you target your first round, you go for your win and you take it from there. I suppose if you do happen to lose it, you know what's ahead of you then, but you give yourselves, our lads have cracked your first, so as no more than every other first round, they're all balanced 50-50 matches, or a little bit, not much, a bit over below that. There's not much between anyone, but like Jim drawing back the care panel left on I would say we'd be an awful lot of hurling now this year. Had over the team that knocked us out last year. Was a game that when we look back on that we felt we possibly left scoring chances afterwards. But if you don't take those chances, you're not going to put yourself in a position to win. And when you're playing a team as experienced as Cratlaw, that you have to be so prepared, take that on head first on the fourth day, and then you look ahead. I think it Merely second and Ballier third. Then in the all matches, which then two teams, as you pointed out there, really strong, experienced senior teams with Kimeli always thereabouts, but in Ballier then you have champions over a number of years and a lot of lads with county medals. So again, another tough group. That and another thing that comes into, I know lads are training all year, and you have clear lads coming back to a majority of the clubs. I know some of it is luck, but avoiding injury and keeping your panel strong, and if a lad does get injured, that he gets looked after and you get him back and he's in a position then to offer where he can. But you'll find the teams that stay relatively injury free, you'll always get an injury or two over the course of a championship or in the lead up to, but I heard Val saying there, like they're the number of injuries now, but maybe having them this time of year is different. Just when the summer comes, you're getting led back or you're keeping them injury free, and also that plays a part in all those matchups too.
Yeah, you mentioned the Clare players. They'll have a 2-month break. I felt last year the Clare players in a lot of clubs were really tired, obviously after winning the All-Ireland, and they were flat out right throughout the year, and I felt they looked very tired. For me, it was actually the club player who were the match winners in a lot of games that I saw anyway, rather than the inter-county player. They just looked tired. But I think you'd have a really fresh county, the players out of the county squad now will be really fresh in 2 months' time.
Yeah, that's true. Like we all saw last year, and any bit of insight to get into it, the amount it takes out of a fella to win an All-Ireland. Winning an All-Ireland is something he'll even his family will remember for the rest of his life. But it's all it takes, and I know Fecal went on and won it with their lad, but the two lads that we had with Clare actually played some of the championship matches, carrying injuries, and eventually caught up with Mark. We hadn't him for one of the matches, and he was carrying that knocked in the Cratlow match. So I agree with you there. To win the All-Ireland is the ultimate, like there's no question about that. But this year then unfortunately finished up as it is, there may be a different freshness to some of the club players, and they'll maybe even be champing to get back to their club, knowing that the Clare scene is a number of months away again, and they'll give it all as they normally do to their clubs, and see where that takes the team itself.
Yeah. Val, I suppose you'll be looking closely at your own group, and you only be kind of having a side eye at the rest of the groups, because it won't interest you until the draw is made for the quarterfinals if everyone is still standing. But we'll just have a look at. I'm just wondering who's going to go through with Heineken in the morning.
Well, at a serious Josh,
I had a Kilbona, Corofin, Clody Quinn and Broadford. It might be seen as maybe not the toughest of the groups that's there, but you still have to go out and beat who's there, and Cloney Quinn will be a strong team in it as well. And Broadford they play terrific hurling. Broadford, they have a great brand of hurling. They will be hard to beat too. So when you look closer at it, it's a tougher group than it might be thought.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you do look at it, look at the numbers that you have, would say Aina would be the standout team in the group from their inter-county players and their underage success. You know, they've been involved in under-21 finals and semi-finals and won them for the last 4 or 5 years, and they've a fierce train of players coming through. So you would expect that they would be the number one team in that group. I mean, I suppose then Corofin, I think they're going well in the Clare Cup this year. You know, they'll have Conor Lean back with them, so they'll be a formidable outfit. I mean, we played them in the third match last year, and everyone was expecting us to walk through them. But like that didn't happen, and we had a tough game against them, and it really stood to us down along the line that game because we had to dig deep to win it. Cloney Quinn and Broadford, then, you know, Broadford, they have a lot of younger players that are coming through there. You know, they have young Gunning, and they have Paddy Donnellan. They'll be coming back from county panels, and Farrell is there, so they're a good strong team. Maybe it might be a year too early for them yet, like, you know, but I suppose you would expect to see Aina coming out, and maybe I'd give the nod to Cloney Quinn as the second team, but you know, I don't think Broadford will be too far away.
Yeah. And the last grouped in is Group 1 with the 6 Mile Bridge and Clonlara would be the two heavyweights in that group. But then Crusheen are an awful tough nut to break, and you know that well, and so would you, Mark. And St. Joseph's to Bearfield are improving size, and they go very well at football. So, and they're basically the same team. They have a lot of success at underage recently as well. They won the minor there a couple of years ago, so they won't be just going along for the spin.
No, they won't. I mean, the one thing is 6 Mile Bridge and Clonlara are playing in the first match. So, do you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
there'll be a result out of that. So then, whoever comes out of the Crusheen Joseph's match will really have the bit between their teeth. Do you know what I mean? Because they'll be playing in one of the other lads. It will be, I think, is it Clonlara then are playing Joseph's in the second match. I think that's the way it works.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, whichever one will win that game will be really, but that'll be a big game, like between Crusheen and Joseph's. That'll be huge, like, because whichever one wins that will have a chance. Like, we would expect that whoever loses it will be really on the back foot, because they'll have to play the bridge and after that.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's all about avoiding the drop as well. It's to say, you know, you have to try and avoid the drop down to intermediate. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world, I think, to go around intermediate, provided you can get back up very quickly, like. But if there's teams down there, you can get stuck down there too, like. So what would you think of that, Mark? It's a tough place to come out of intermediate.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And you have to, Everton has to fall right for you over the course of the intermediate championship, because, and especially the way it's designed from now on, that the teams, sometimes in the group there over the years, you were playing a club second team, and you were always kind of saying to yourself, well, once we're right now today and we perform, we're going to be whoever, you know, and you're always kind of trying to put yourself into a position to be in the quarter final relatively strong. So, going down there the way it is, these kinds it's going to be very hard for teams to get back up. I know the Middles will be favoured this year, and possibly could go back up, would say straight away, but it always doesn't work that way. But it's about winning your match in the group, in the championship, in the senior, keeping that foot. If you have 2 points, you might add a draw to it, or if you add a second point, you're definitely safe. But most of the teams now will be saying to themselves, we have to consolidate our senior status, stay where we are, stabilising for the future, keep young lads coming through, and divide going down. So but in most teams, most managers, most clubs look at it that way, you know.
Yeah. When you look at the intermediate championship there, and you see Tulla, O'Callaghan, Willis and Clarecastle specifically, you'd be wondering why, if it was 10 years ago, you'd be saying, well, that must be the senior championship, but it's not. It's the intermediate championship.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a top group, sure, yeah.
I suppose there's one team down there I wouldn't have no favourites. I would friends with lads in Whitegate and Tulla and all over the county, but Tubber are a team that you really have to feel for. Last year, and I'm not going to bring up anything here, but last year they would have felt really aggrieved at the county final last year in the manner in which they lost out, not taking anything away from Tones and Shinna. But I think that most people wouldn't mind seeing Tubber, the likes of the Lees and that getting their hands on an intermediate middle.
Oh no, not at all. I think Fecal beat them in one final. We beat them the year we went up. Last year were everyone's favourites to progress, and they came up against the Tubber side that from what it looked like, they had said, we have it this year, this is our chance, this is the year we're going up, and they did fall short, I suppose, for one reason or another. But what they have to do now, I suppose, is they have to back that up. They put themselves in the same position again this year, and it just shows they're a very experienced intermediate team that have been in finals and semi-finals with a good strong squad, and they still can't make that final jump to get up to the senior level, and that just shows the quality and the competition that's in the intermediate championship. So it'll be this year's intermediate championship. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah. So, well, there's the intermediate. You have an intermediate hurling group, and then you have a premier intermediate hurling group. Is there two different? Is there a difference between them two?
That is the intermediate proper. The premier then is the next group below that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
The intermediate has been brought down to a number of teams. There was too many in it, so that's what they have done now.
Yeah.
It's 2 groups of 5, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 groups of 5. Yeah, you've Tulla and Clarecastle, and you've Tulla, O'Callaghan's Mills, Partine, Mealig, Killeen, Tubber, and then you've Clarecastle, Rowan, Bodyke, 6 Mile Bridge, and Whitegate.
Yeah.
So
actually, it's very strong because the teams that are going down, since they put down the 2 teams like a few years ago, you have Castle down there, you have the Mills down there, and as you say, if that was 5 or 6 years ago, they'd be in contention for the senior championship.
Well, the Mills were in the final there not so long ago, and of course, Castle back in the 90s, they were the premier team in the county there.
And they wouldn't have been expected to be staying down there, you know what I mean? They were very confident last year that they would win the championship, so I'd say they won't be too far away from it either.
Yeah. So there's no risk in your laurels. You have to keep at it. You have to avoid that relegation. If I was to put your head in the block, I know what he's going to say. Fecal doesn't going to say Scariff, and he'll probably be the other way around. But who would be your favourites for? You're allowed more than one team. Mark, who would you rate as your favourites for the championship?
Well, you always prepare your own team in a way that you want them to be contenders. So you always when you're asked that question at the beginning of the year, you're always going to say your own team.
Your own team,
and Fecal are defending champions. They're not going to relinquish this too easily. They had a very strong campaign last year, and it showed by the time they got to the final. They were worldly champions. So I'd put Fecal definitely back in the mix. But again, you can in any championship, you can never look beyond Powell, 6 Mile Bridge bounced back after being beaten last year. Drumlara were county champions from the year before. Ballyale will be saying it's now we got our act together, and got back into another final or whatever. So it's very hard to pinpoint a certain team or two. Look, you always want your own team to do well. When you're adding the top 3 or 4 contenders every year, there's always one of them there or thereabouts. So look, I'd again a wide open championship, and it shows when Fecal got over the line last year that when you get a run and when you get your panel and everything goes your way, it's a championship that's well worth winning, and it's a great competition, So look, I wouldn't pinpoint any 1 or 2 teams, other than you'll be open your own team, I guess, a good run, and whatever challenges are thrown at something that they'd be able for,
And Val, do you want to hold on to that? Yeah, obviously you want to hold on to that bit of silverware over there. I think you won't let go of it easily, but if there was a challenger to your title, where would you see it coming from?
Well, sure, I suppose, as Mark says, on paper there, the Bridge are always going to be involved in the championship. Like, no, you know, they came last year with all sails, all guns blazing, and they took Clonard out in the quarter-final, do you know what I mean? And then we're lucky to get over Aine Kilnamore in the semi-final in a shootout, penalty shootout. So they'll be definitely in the mix. And on paper, like, Aine Kilnamore should be winning championships every second year, you know? They just can't seem to get it together when it's like they did last year, and then we're beaten in penalties. Like, how close can you get, you know? So they would be the team. And I mean, Scariff are coming, and there's no doubt in saying they're not. Like, and everyone did want to see Fecal 2 years ago, Fecal and Scariff coming together, and it was on the car. We were all hoping for
Up the derby, yeah.
And how ideal would it be, like, that if they did meet, you know, because we have the greatest rivalry with them, like, and there'll be skinhead hair on the field, but once it'll be over, you know, whoever wins, like, you know.
Yeah.
And for East Clare, you'd be hoping that, you know, I'd be hoping all the East Clare teams like Scariff, Broadford, Fecal, ourselves, you know, that we'll be there on the mix when it comes to the quarter-final stage, and get the bit of momentum going behind you, you know. But if you had to ask me one team outside of ourselves, it would be Aine Kilnamore, get it together. They're the team.
Yeah. Well, let's say I got home happy so this evening, back to West Clare almost. But yeah, that about sums it up. That's great. It's great to have you on the show. It's great. Look, last Sunday, the Clare team, the Clare senior team, and you can both say something on this, the Clare senior team proved that they're real men. Like, they went out and beat Limerick in their own patch in a game. You know, they said it had no consequences, but that's a derby game always. And they went out with their heads held high. And, you know, if it wasn't for injuries and whatnot, especially injuries, I think we would still be in the championship. You would have been right there, Val.
Oh, you would, of course. I mean, when you have injuries, when you have 4 or 5 of your main players out, and, you know, it's very hard for a team to come back, especially after winning it last year, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that the injuries did ravage them, like, and that was the difference, you know. And they played with a bit of abandon last Sunday, and, you know, they showed what they can do on the day, you know.
Yeah. A long break now and a senior championship, and they'll be back champions in the bit again in January.
Yeah, and a few handy league matches in Division 2.
It'll be nice, yeah. We'll be good up Tantrum, and we won't be going to Tantrum, actually. If we'll be going to Dole, Chicago, and other places like that.
We'll get to see a bit of the country.
Yeah, exactly. Have you petrol in the car for that, Mark?
Yeah, well, I go to that. I will.
Very good. Mark McKenna, thanks very much for coming for talking to us. Always great to hear from you, and the same to yourself, Val Donnellan. Two great East Clare men. It's great to be here. It's such company. I remember both of you hurling, like, and to be talking to you here today is a real honour, and I'm delighted to get your side of the story. And thanks very much. And we'll leave it at that here from Scariff Bay Community Radio. And thanks to Jim there on the controls. And we'll say good evening.